Okay, so it's been a long time since I've done an update on the pond here on my YouTube channel, and I said I'd give you a quick look at what's going on and how everybody's doing. Everybody's getting really big. Isn't that right, Batman? You troublemaker. Big chunky monster. And yeah, guys are all doing brilliantly. They're starting to get to the point now where they're about to max out this system. But luckily enough, I have some more ponds in the pipeline. Stuff is gonna be changing soon, but I wanted to give you a rundown on this anyway. So we can see here we've got our door, and this has been so good over winter. It hasn't really mattered what temperature things have gotten down to because this is fully sealed off. The temperature stayed really nice and warm in here, and over the last couple of weeks, I went from having to have a 200 watt heater in here and a 125 or 150 watt heater in here on all the time. Well, I don't now. They're absolutely fine. Like you can see, the air temperature in here, goodness, the max there was 25.7 and the current is 15.4. That'll drop a little bit lower now because the outside air temperature is nowhere near that. These single-tailed, now there's one or two twin-tails, but the bulk of these are the single-tailed around the hybrids. So it's common goldfish. Oh, dogs are having a great time. Common goldfish mixed with Aranda, and the reason for that is I actually have a couple in here that were kind of very pleasant accidents. Isn't that right, Batman? You're not one. You're just a giant Aranda. There's a couple in here, like this one here, and a couple more that are basically they're single-tailed Aranda. This one over here, big, powerful Aranda-like goldfish with one single tail, super powerful. So these will be kept separate. The idea of these is that they can go into a sunken pond, an unheated pond, because they're just going to be that bit hardier. And these guys here, they need the heat. This is currently at 16 degrees, and we've been maintaining that now for the last, well, it's been 16, 17 degrees constantly for the last, well, all year, all winter. It was super. No matter how cold it got, we had no issues with the temperatures in the pond whatsoever. And yeah, I have to say, like as winters go, it was really pretty much hassle free. Even though we did get some cold spells, there was no issues. It was great. I have my viewing window here, which I was constantly able to view them by. My moss is looking a little bit tattered now at the moment. I need to do a bit of work on that, but I'm actually going to leave it because I'll be taking all that out of there. I did have moss all back here, but I took it out, and now we just have the stuff that was grown out. Oh, there now, we've got a red wiggly worm in here. Now, see that mud? That's not muck, that's basically, like, that's just sediment from the filter, and the snails are making a little setup, or sorry, the worms are making a little setup for them in there. I'll go through the filter stuff now in a minute anyway, but basically I took back some of all that because there was moss all around here, but it wasn't all doing perfectly, but the stuff that's doing here is starting to grow back in really well, and same with here as well. The fish in general are doing brilliant. They're getting big. We've got loads of guys in here. Like I said, they're getting to the point now where I don't want to keep them in this setup as they are for too much longer because it's a lot of fish. And the only reason that I can actually have this many fish in here, well, there's two reasons. One, because it's not that warm, and because it's not that warm, the temperature of the water at 16, 15, 16 degrees, 17 degrees, it can hold enough oxygen for all these. We've got oxygen being created by the water coming down here. We've got oxygen being created that's being I've got a big pump in a unit in behind here, and I've got air coming in here. I've got more air coming up there. I've obviously got the bubbles coming down here, and we can see the bubbles in underneath. Yeah, fishos. We've got aeration coming from this guy here, from it splashing down over here and coming in here. So there's actually a number of ways in which we're introducing oxygen into the system. However, there's a lot of fish in here, and they're constantly, if you can imagine just having a lot of people in a room, well, it's the same kind of thing. So we need to keep on introducing oxygen. The thing is, if the water temperatures were higher, they'd be able to hold less oxygen. And so if this was up 20 degrees, these guys might struggle because it would be difficult to get enough oxygen into the water for all these guys. So I can't have these too warm, and I'm just lucky that Ireland doesn't get warm. So whereas the air temperature in here has gotten up really warm, all I have to do is open open these guys here, and it'll just cool down. So this is Bluetooth. I can set this up with alerts and stuff like that, which is super handy. And the other thing then is in terms of filtration. These guys are getting a bunch of feeds a day. Their last feed is the water a little bit cloudy, and that'll take a little while to just get worked out of the system. But the only reason I can keep all these guys in here is because even though like we've got our massive wetlands bog filter, I'll give you a look at that now in a minute, and we've got our other filter over here, we've got all our plants and all, there's a lot of fish, and it's not so much about the fish, it's the quantity of food I'm feeding them. It's just a huge quantity of food. These guys eat a lot, and I'm just going to close over my door here. Not that door. The wind is blowing this around. The quantity of food these guys are getting, if you were just to get that and just keep on throwing that into a pond this size, the pond would go rotten really quickly. The filters do so much of like working on that and removing ammonia, nitrates, but this little trickle of fresh water coming in, now I have to add the Chlorinator as well. It's coming in through a carbon block here. I was going to remove this, but you know, I left it in here over winter because this is the warmest place and I didn't want this freezing at any point when it got really cold, and I've just kind of left it in situ. It's not great looking, but I can just remove that and put it on the outside and just run the hose in, but it's still there for now. It's easy to access and stuff like that. That constant trickle of water going in, well, that volume of water coming in is also going out here, and don't be biting me, is going out there as well, and I can use it on my plants and stuff like that, which is grand. But it means that constantly, like, this pond gets turned over a couple of times a week naturally, so it's like there's a constant really small water change going on, which is awesome. There is another, so I've got my big pump down here that's pumping up into this system here, and this wetland bog system has my pipe running back for it, and this has grown in incredibly well. We've got like all this moss here has grown over some there's just bogwood in here. The moss is doing super. We've got all of our duckweed. I take handfuls of this stuff here out, try not to get bitten by spiders, and I can feed that to the guys. And Batman usually goes a bit crazy because he wants proper food, not just duckweed. Now he does eat his duckweed, he's a good boy. And I've got loads of other stuff. These guys here just avocados, so I tend to put them in there for a bit, and then I can transfer them across. We've got avocados up here as well. So my big pump down there, touch wood, haven't had any issues with that whatsoever. That's just pumped up, like I said, in here. And basically I've done, like, it's as close as I can get to kind of zero maintenance filter, really, because I actually can't do too much with it, because if I go in here I'm just going to disturb what's going on. And if you look here, even just sitting up on top there, we've got some Isopods. Let me show you some of these guys. Dead center, Isopod. There are loads of them crawling around the rocks, and the water's all spewing out from between those rocks. Super, that's exactly what I want. It's not all blocked up, and for the amount of food these guys get, because they do get a lot of food, you'd expect those rocks to be all completely clogged up, but they're not, because of all those isopods and the little red worms and all the rest. They're going around in there and they're breaking up any of the waste. They're breaking it down even further, and the plants are doing well. The plants are actually going crazy. You can see here, they're just sitting off the roof at the moment and bending over. But we've got stuff starting to flower again here at the back. Everything's doing brilliant. The extra bit of daylight now is making a huge difference. I've just got a couple of hanging baskets up here now at the moment. They're not doing a whole lot, and some pots of moss and stuff like that. I do need to give this place a good kind of tidy out. It's just, it's really hard to reach the back and stuff like that at the moment. So that's the one thing about the setup, is doing maintenance back here can be a little bit difficult. I do need to go in, as all this stuff here, I've actually got a load of seeds there that I'm going to pull out, because they're all bone dry now. They're good to go, and if I can get those in a setup, I'll be able to grow a load of new irises. So yeah, everything done really well in here. The irises, they did still flower in here. Look at this, I've got more seed pods here, so I'll have to pull that down. And oh goodness, my camera's having a hard time focusing. Yeah, got a lot of seed pods there, so I'll collect that now as well. Yeah, they're all doing super. These guys here are doing great. They're on the same, this is all one system. So this water here is this water here. So this is, it's funny because, I mean, for the amount of fish in the setup, you can see the water is actually pretty clear. The green on the back is because of this back window here. I can't get in there properly to do like scrub the glass. I use this guy here generally for doing the glass, and You can see the bottom, it's got kind of a dark green carpet. The sun is really, you can see the bit that I can't reach down the end. The sun is really starting to cause like algae on here. That's one thing, if you're keeping a tank outside, just need to be mindful of the fact that you're gonna get algae, like so much algae on the outside of the glass as the sun's hitting it. You can see it's completely carpeted at the bottom. But the guys just go around and nibble on that and everything, so that's fine. Plants that I have in the pond. Oh yeah, and then this is the other filter that I have here. I've got a pump down that wire there. Now there's some fish just over the top of it, nibbling on stuff that's gotten sucked into that general area. That gets pumped up through this pipe here, comes up in the back, and that's that water going in there. So that is circulating around here, and then it's going, that's an overflow here. Water goes down through that black pipe and comes out down underneath here. Now this is just chock-a-block full of and red wigglers. Look, right in the center of the frame you can see all the little red worms and isopods going around. This is an incredible setup for dealing with like just food waste and stuff like that, any sort of a waste that gets over and from these guys here, because there's quite a few little guys in here. Like I said, they're getting an in-ground pond on a different property, so that's being set up now at the moment. It's going to be massive. It's going to be a huge setup. So they're just in here until the temperatures just get a little bit better outside, because I think we're due another cold snap. But I'm expecting some hardy guys here. These guys are good. I like these guys. They're a little bit more nervous than like the Aranda are, but they're definitely, like, if I was to do this a couple of weeks ago, sorry, neighbour's dog's going through. If I was to do this a couple of weeks ago, those guys would be jumping around. So the Aranda in them and just getting used to me. Sorry about those dogs, guys. Oh goodness, someone's getting excited out there. Oh goodness, he's got the zoomies. Hang on, I'll start him. Okay, hopefully that's that sorted. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, start again. Got a bunch of guys in here and that are doing super. And they are getting like much more relaxed. You can see they're coming over to my hand as opposed to being freaked out. But like if I move this even the tiniest bit, they'll go crazy. Whereas these guys here, if I start moving this, like they'll usually come in for a closer look, and I have to be really careful that yeah, I don't get them. So yeah, the Aranda are just super friendly. And this ranch, you are starting to get super friendly as well, aren't you, Vanilla? And so is he, actually. I know, it's good. Maybe, yeah, they're just getting that little bit friendlier, which is nice, because they don't come up top as much, but not like the likes of Batman, who just hangs around here begging. See the white lumpy wen he's got there, it's still growing. Those white lumps on top of his head there, that's new wen. Yeah, he's just getting big. But these guys here, they are getting friendlier, so I'm super excited about that, because it'll be nice to have them nice and friendly in the in-ground pond. And there's a couple in here that just didn't get this. He's got a nice big twin tail, big deep body, same breeding, but didn't. The single tail won out kind of genetically, and for most of them. But there are a couple that didn't get the single tail, they got the twin. And like, I think, yeah, there are a couple that are starting to show the first signs of like early wen development, so that'll be really exciting. Because there are one or two in here that are single tailed. This one here, and you know what, I think that's a cool fish. Really big chunky body, but a single powerful tail, so it can go in with regular goldfish. And it's like a battering ram, if you can imagine Batman, but with one big powerful tail. Batman on steroids, able to burst around the place. So yeah, so these guys here won't be kept in with the fancy females, because the males of these guys could really do damage to the female fancy goldfish, I think. So the idea of these is that they're going to go with the ground. Yeah, but like this system is working really well. I've got everything is starting to grow again. So I've got my redstone parrot feather. There's a bit of Elodea dents in there as well, and this is like all different types of media. So see these guys here, I got sponges in here, and you can see all of those little isopods. If I need to seed another tank or pond or set up really quickly, I just take those sponges out with all of the stuff alive in them, and I stick them into it, and that's it, job done. We've got our lights here, we've got light here, and that's in here. Like, they come on relatively early just to make sure that all of the Elodea dents in the pond is going to grow super well, which it always does. Like, I mean, This is the thing, when you got dense LD densa, it does get waste trapped in it really easily. All the little fine particles from like after a feed will get caught in it. But I just swish that out with my hand in the direction of the overflow. Job done. Yeah, so that's been growing like crazy. I do also have lilies down in there somewhere, but they are struggling. These guys are at the point now where they can really demolish plants if they really want to. The great thing about the Elodea densa is no matter how much I trim that back, it will regrow as long as I leave just enough of it, because they eat it, and I mean they strip it bare. Like, you can see this piece here is just like, I mean, they've destroyed that. But this is what happens. You get a little bit stick out like that, and then it just grows and grows and grows. And I've been taking all of the extra stuff every time I do a water a trim in the pond, and look what I've built up over the winter. I kept this whole setup heated over winter to a lower temperature in the pond, but I never let it freeze or anything like that. And this, like, I've got so much Elodea densa and duckweed, which I then also feed to the pond. I've also got this little setup here, which is got duckweed and frogs in it, which is cool. It's the dog's little watering hole, and has a little mister. I need to top this off with water because it's always evaporating. And I've also got this half barrel set up, which is just basically for duckweed, and I can just come along and take handfuls of this. But it's also I've taken out like some of the stuff out of the filter, so that has isopods and worms and stuff in there as well, so I could literally dump that into a pond, and I just occasionally top that off with water from the filters from the pond, so that the duckweed has food to grow. And then I've got this as well, and this has red stem parrot feather, which is grown back again, and it's done pretty well over winter. And again, isopods, worms, snails, all the good stuff. So, and this has a little air sponge filter in it, as does this. And both of these setups do get fed from water from the pond, just to keep all the plants in good nick. And I mean, they're getting light in from pretty much everywhere, but it's making a huge difference that now we do have like proper daylight. I do have lights. I've got a couple of spots lights. I've got one here, one over beyond, this one here pointing at all the plants, and I've got this one here is kind of the main one for illuminating the pond. And they're solar, so they haven't been costing me anything to run over winter, and have given me loads of extra good light here in the evenings. When the evenings were a little bit shorter, I was able to keep the lights on and keep all the plants growing really well, so that's been really good as well. Yeah, and then I mean, like, it's been a really kind of nice winter with the guys here. Haven't had too many issues at all. We had a couple of issues where the water locally got really bad, so it like damaged one or two of my filters, and I had to do some do some work in it. But I do still have to add the Chlorinator to this setup because of that. And I don't leave this run like completely all the time. I can turn this off, and sometimes what I do is I turn it off at night, because I can keep a good eye on it during the day to make sure that there's no issues, but I'm not in a position to be in here dripping in the Chlorinator at night and stuff like that. So top tip, these little cheapo aquarium thermometers are no good at all. I have like 3 or 4 of them around that I got cheap, just because I wanted to maintain or monitor the temperatures in different areas. No good whatsoever. So don't rely on those. This is like this area here. I do have a thermometer in here, but it's saying 15.6. This one's saying 16. I think this one here is the more accurate. But I keep one up in here as well, because this would be one of the parts of the filter that gets the least amount of circulation. So what I want to do is I just want to make sure that there's no cold spots or anything like that. So I just put that in there. That sends a wireless signal up to me upstairs as well. And this guy here, I have to say, has been really good. This is like a little Govee Bluetooth setup. Gives me my humidity, and usually when the temperature goes up, the humidity goes down, and then when the temperature drops in here at night, the humidity tends to creep up. But you can set little alarms and alerts on your phone and stuff, so that's a handy little thing. That's just something that I got because I had a couple of the lights and I thought they were good. So yeah, nice and cheap on Amazon. It's just nice to know what the temperatures are in here while I'm like up in my office working away. If it gets really hot, I know I can come down and open windows and stuff like that. Yeah, so they're all doing brilliant. There are some extra babies that aren't in here, that aren't in here either. I have them in my office. Some baby pearl. I have a baby pearl scale. Some baby. Oh, where's he gone? Where's the dad? He might pop out. We shall see. Hang on, I'll see if I can find him. Oh, there he is. So be here. He's great. Nah, this fella here. My telescope. Aha! And there's the mammy. Pandaranda. So they've had a bunch of kids, but for the best part, they're just like a randa, but with like kind of wide eyes. And then you've got this guy, Blinky, which just has one eye. But they're kind of just a randa with wide set eyes. Oh, the Batman. He is a beast. He's doing brilliant. He's just amazing. There's his kids. He can't deny his kids, that's for sure. So there's a couple in here that look like a regular Aranda, but just with kind of wider eyes, funny shaped head, and they're actually pretty cute. They're getting wen and stuff. But I do have one telescope. So dad's genetics beat mom's genetics, and there's a full proper telescope Aranda baby upstairs as well. I got a bunch more Aranda babies. But everybody's doing super. But yeah, just wanted to do a bit of an update. Everything's been going great, but like I said, I wouldn't be able to keep, I think it would be too much to expect these guys to continue their growth rate, because you might be able to see there's loads of white dots on their head. So white dot on his head. Hey buddy. And we've got white dots on pretty much most of their heads, and that's wen growth. These guys are growing some serious wen. They're growing, they're doing really well, and I'm only going to be able to maintain growth in these guys if the water quality stays up. Oh, there's a big chunky ranchu. How are you, buddy? He's a big beast of a fella. Absolute monster. Oh, there's TJ. Another big beast of a ranchu. The scales are amazing. They're doing super. All the babies are getting really big. Like really big. One of Batman's. Another one of Batman's. This one is starting to go white under the belly like Mama Bear. So starting to go panda. Really excited about that. And so is this one. They both, oh goodness, they both there. Brilliant, that's new. So that wasn't pale underneath a couple of days ago. So they're always changing colour. Even you, Batman, you're always changing colour. Look, you look silver there. And there's Vanilla. They're all doing great. They're all doing super. Yeah, but it's the struggle at the moment is keeping the water like super pristine clear, because they're eating so regularly and they're producing so much fine particle waste when they're eating. Because the way they do it is they suck in the food, they hold it in their mouth, and they chew, and then they flush all the water out between. They either spit it out the front of their mouth or they flush it out through their gills. But either way, they have to push all the water out that was in their mouth, because they don't swallow the water. The problem is all the little tiny particles end up in the water, chewed up, ground down food, and it just makes the water like really cloudy. And then you see all of this stuff there. That's what it looks like after a while when it's caught on the plants, and you can see there's a bunch of it there. Now if I just take like even a bit of this plant here, take that off, and I pop that in here. Actually I did it earlier on, and you can see there it's been stripped completely. It's like bright green, whereas it looked like that. All the little isopods are going to climb up on top of that now and have a field day with it, because that's what they do. They eat that stuff, they break it down, and they make it something even like more nutritious and useful for all the plants. And then again, we've got water flushing it all out. And these guys are all hungry again, because of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? And they're getting big though, and I couldn't possibly keep them in here for the rest of the year. So this is about 1100 litres. They're getting a big upgrade. We're talking 5,000 litres, and that's just for these guys. So that'll allow them to get an awful lot bigger. These guys here are going to get an even bigger ground pond, which I am so excited about. So they'll have to be moved off to a different property. That's fine. I can let them grow there. I'll be able to look after them. It's all good. But these guys need a massive upgrade in order to keep them good nick. And I'm still deciding what I'm going to do about this pond then, because I won't be keeping this one here like this. So I don't know. Any suggestions on what to do with this pond? Very welcome. Yeah, because I'm still just not sure what I'm going to do. And it's funny because like this is a relatively deep pond. Like an awful lot of people ask me about goldfish and like keeping them in shallow ponds and stuff like that, my attitude is your goldfish are going to get tons of exercise if you give them a way to get exercise, and they all love swimming in the current that comes down from here. They love it, and they get muscular, and they get big thick bodies, and they look really chunky. And yeah, like this beast back here, like, look at that big single tail around that. That is like, that's the way they go after being like that for a while. So I'm super excited. Gonna be loads of these guys. But they get muscular if they have something to swim against. It's like giving them a treadmill, essentially. They can do a bit of exercise, and they like doing it. So it's really good to have that in the setup. But it's a relatively deep pond, so they're going to get muscular. This whole thing of keeping them in a shallow pond, it doesn't affect them keeping them in a deep pond. And in fact, I've kept most of these, like the adults, I've kept in a much deeper pond. I once kept them in a pond that was about that high. So they loved it. Like, sometimes they'd be at the bottom, sometimes they'd be at the top. Some fish prefer being at the bottom. Part of the idea of keeping them in a shallow pond is that they have to be up top, so we can see them really easily, whereas it's much more difficult to see the guys down the bottom. And again, if you don't have much by way of filtration going on, it's going to be much harder to see them. And if you've got no filtration, so in the olden days when there was no electrical pumps or anything like that, they couldn't pump water around, they couldn't filter it. So they're relying on plants and stuff like that. If you didn't have a shallow pond, you wouldn't see the fish, because the water would get green algae really quick. We can put windows so we can see down to the bottom, no problem. And we can see across what's happening, and it's awesome. And we can have, like, I could put some extra filter padding in here and like get this water super clear, and we'd be able to see down to the bottom, no problem, even with this volume of fish in it. It wouldn't necessarily do anything to improve the water quality, but it would be clearer. We can do all that stuff now. So keeping them in a pond this depth is no problem. And in fact, their new pond is actually going to be much deeper than this. It's going to be another 2 foot, I'd say, deeper than this one. So they're going to have more depth. They're going to have more length to swim down, and it's going to be wider front to back. So it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. And the thing is, I'll be putting bigger windows on it. That'll leave me with this setup, and I'll be taking off all this stuff anyway. This stuff is all coming off because I'll be reusing, I'd say, quite a bit of this stuff on other projects that I've got coming up. But yeah, any suggestions on what to do with this, I'd be interested to hear. And because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But it has been just really nice watching these guys growing. And starting to develop that slightly like deeper body shape and stuff like that they get when they start getting a little bit bigger. It's mad. They start off like a regular goldfish, and then they just go chonk, and they just get super deep, and they start to get that Aranda shape, which is awesome. And the other thing is these guys grow super fast. Like, some of them are just ridiculous. Like this big one up here is, like, that big one is the same age as like the one below it. It's just grown so much faster, and there are a couple of like monsters. Yeah, they're doing super. Everybody's doing great. There's been no major incidents to report, which has been really nice. And I mean, over the winter it cost me probably the equivalent of a cup of coffee a day to run this. I can live with that. For what I get out of this, I can 100% live with that. And so can these guys. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without all the insulation that goes in this. So again, like this here, I could push, if I push really hard, that it probably would leave the tiniest little dent. That's a thermal insulation board in behind there. So all of this is thermal insulation board underneath that directly. I don't even have pond liner under this, just straight up against the thermal insulation board, which is the silver foil board, and that literally goes, it's that deep. Like so, it's that thick of just insulation all the way around and on the bottom again. And then because of this, this has been the huge win for me over winter, is no breeze has been able to blow in through here. If there's no breeze blowing in, just even when the outside temperature is really low, like the lowest temperature, I think, yeah, like the lowest temperature it got in here is being 9.2 degrees. That's the air temperature in here over the last good few weeks, including when it got really cold. It was so much colder than that outside, and with wind chill, it would have been crazy. And And then the other thing is, like, this is providing loads of protection. We've got a roof up here, so it's providing protection, because, like, I had a bucket just outside the pond, and quite often what I'll do is I'll bring buckets out and I'll leave them around here if I do a water change upstairs, full of they'll be full of snails, pond snails and stuff, and I'll add them into one of my other systems. This was bonkers. So the birds dropped a chicken wing into it, like cannibal birds dropping chicken wings. And like, I've seen them drop stuff into this pond before I had the lid on it. Before I put this lid on it, just up in the corner there of that roof, there was a couple of starlings, and what they were doing was they were dropping dog nuts off of the roof into the wetlands bog filter and letting them soak up water and making it easier to eat. Somebody was just leaving dog nuts around, and their dog's out in the back garden, and the dog wasn't eating out of the bowl, and the birds were coming along early in the morning robbing. I lost the fish at one point in this pond in the early days because the fish ate a dog nut, like a piece of dog food. But now the birds are dropping chicken wings off the roof, so I'm like, oh my goodness, it's bad enough the dog getting stuff he shouldn't get, but if a chicken wing got to the bottom of this pond, I wouldn't know about it, and then you'd have one of these guys here eating some sinewy, tenuous bit of yucky chicken, and you could end up with things like really nasty stuff. So yeah, I'm really glad I've got this roof on it. Whatever about like these guys up here, like the really kind of hardy bigger goldfish, well, when they get bigger, like single tail goldfish, super hardy, these guys, they just need that little bit more TLC, you know. Fancy goldfish, there's just a bit more work goes into them. But we think it's worth it, don't we, Mum Bear? That's it, guys. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on how things are going in the pond. Brilliantly over winter, I have to say. It's been absolutely fantastic. They're doing super, and that's my main concern. Like, I don't, you know, like I said, for the sake of a cup of coffee per day to keep these guys heated out here over winter, like, it's a no-brainer. It's been so worth it for me. When they are getting their new setup, it will be fully enclosed, but I'll go into that in a future video, because there's an awful lot to that build that still needs to be done. I'm building materials for that now at the moment, but that's going to be kind of over the coming weeks. That's going to be huge. I may, because it's going to be the coming weeks, and if the weather gets a little bit warmer, I may put all of these guys into the in-ground pond first, and then move them into the raised pond that I build, because that might be the easiest option, just for moving them, and it'll give them extra space as the weather gets better and they're all grown and things are just moving, because these guys are growing so quickly, and they're growing incredibly well, and I don't want to stunt their growth by like putting them in a scenario where they're not getting enough, you know, fresh water and stuff like that. Like I do have my aquaponics system still, which has all the LDA in it. I just have to pull some of that LDA out, and I can drop these fish in. I could drop like 50 of these fish in, and they do brilliantly in there. But ideally, I'm gonna have another setup ready to go before that happens, because I just want them to have the extra space, you know. But that's it, guys. Just wanted to give you an update on how things are going in the pond. Really good winter as these things go, and yeah, hopefully you can hear me over all this splashing water. I love it out here, except for the dogs barking. Everything else is usually pretty peaceful. That's it. Talk to you later. Bye.